following clip is a segment from the latest episode of the Vermilion Sports Podcast. Link to the full episode is in the description below, where we dive into Ragin Cajuns soccer, volleyball, and football. All right, Charlie. The starting quarterback position. This is something that needs to be talked about. It's been talked about by head coach Billy Napier, but this is an interesting decision that may ultimately be underwhelming to some. So let's discuss. The two quarterbacks competing for the start in Game 1 against Grambling on September 1st are sophomore Levi Lewis and senior Andre Nunez for the Ragin Cajuns football team. Napier did list some qualities he said he is looking for out of his starting quarterback at Ragin Cajuns Media Day on August 2nd. Accuracy, great communicator, and productive were a few assets listed by Napier in the press conference. Another quality by Napier is how the quarterback elevates the players around him. So first, let's look at Levi Lewis. Lewis was not expected to play in 2017. He was a redshirt freshman to start the season, but then he had his redshirt removed in a road start at South Alabama on November 4th. Lewis would go on to complete 8 passes of 15 attempts for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns en route to a 19-14 win for the Ragin Cajuns. He displayed the ability to create plays out of the pocket, out of the pass, by running for 129 yards on 18 attempts. What was your initial reaction to Levi Lewis having his red shirt removed?
I was not a fan of it personally. I saw him play in high school, actually, in his second to last high school prep career game. He played my high school in the playoffs. And so it was really interesting to see him because he was so explosive. He's such a great athlete, and he was all over the field. He was making plays, really outstanding football player. So when I heard that he was coming to UL, I was really excited. When I heard that he was redshirting, I was even more excited because that's a full 4 years of him. We didn't need to waste his year. And Coach Hudspeth pulled his redshirt late in the season, which I was obviously disappointed in because that takes a full year of eligibility from him. We did get to see a few flashes of him playing college ball. His first game, as you said, it was against South Alabama. His second game was against Ole Miss on the road, throwing a freshman right in the fire. He actually got injured in that game as well. But in his last 2 games, he also, I don't know if he was 100%. He still showed a few flashes. You look at the numbers, he's a great dual threat quarterback. He makes a lot of good plays out of nothing. So there's a lot of positives to him being the starting quarterback.
Well, some of the support for having his red shirt removed was, he'll graduate in 4 years anyway.
Yeah.
Well, what's the 5th year? And then he'll have more experience going into the 3 years remaining he has with the Ragin Cajuns. So some of the support and some of the argument for having his red shirt removed is those things, is having more experience coming into this season under new head coach Billy Napier, which, of course, he didn't know at the time, but
yes,
now he has more experience. And what was the 5th year anyway? That was kind of
I can understand that.
Support for that.
I can understand that, and I think that the 4 games that he played in are good experience. You want to get as many college reps under your belt as possible before your final seasons. And he did get some good reps. He did get some good playing time. He got some important playing time late in the season. So that really showed that coaching staff's trust in Lewis as a young athlete. And he did really, as I said, he showed some good flashes. He was a really good quarterback for us.
He played in 4 games. He started 3. In 2017, he threw for a total of 377 passing yards, 52% passing completion, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He added 175 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. In those 4 games, he averaged 138 yards per game. Charlie, what are we seeing out of the other quarterback, Andre Nunez?
So Andre Nunez, the senior this upcoming season, he was a big part of the quarterback carousel that we experienced last season. But he played in some really important games, and he played really well in some important games as well. He played in 4 games last season. 2 of them he started, and 2 of them were off the bench. And in my opinion, the 2 best games that he had last season were the 2 games he came off the bench. So Nunez's first game off the bench was in UL's 56-50 double overtime loss to ULM, where he threw for a season-high 287 yards on 22 of 37 passing and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 28 yards and added 1 rushing touchdown. He impressed again as a backup against Idaho on the road in UL's 21-16 win, where he connected on 18 to 24 passing attempts, 75% completion percentage. You always like to see that.
And that's the accuracy that Napier's talking about.
Exactly.
He wants out of his quarterback.
For 213 yards and 1 touchdown. And his first start, however, against Arkansas State, it was short-lived. He threw for 51 yards, completing only 4 passes before leaving the game. He got injured in that game. It was his first start, but it wasn't, long-lived. That was the only game where he threw for under 200 yards out of his 4 games. So in 3 out of his 4 appearances, when he played most of the game, he put up really good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, great numbers, 18 of 24. You like to see that? Very accurate, recording a 62% passing completion. 61 of 99 pass attempts were completed. Nunez led Louisiana in average yards per game at 195.8, threw for a total of 783 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in 4 appearances. So the difference in these quarterbacks, you can just see it.
There's Nunez, a very stark difference.
A pocket passer, very accurate with the ball. Lewis, more dynamic out of the pocket.
Yes.
So there's the differences there. They have the same amount of experience with Louisiana, different skill sets. So I want you to present the case for Levi Lewis to start in game 1.
As I said, Levi Lewis, he's a very explosive athlete. So he can provide a lot more rather than just the passing game. He provides a lot of, a really good dual threat quarterback. He can run out of the pocket, scramble, and create plays out of nothing. He's much different from Nunez, who's more of a pocket passer. Who's not going to provide that big of a dual threat capabilities, but Nunez at the same time has a better completion percentage, is a better pocket passer. He throws for more touchdowns. So there's definite stark differences. Both have their pros and cons, but either option I think Napier has to make. Either option's a good one.
And here's where the decision can be underwhelming to some, because I know people like one starting quarterback throughout the entire game, but Napier has said it's not beyond him to play 2 guys. It's been done in the past. I'd play either one. If I played either one of them tomorrow, I would sleep great. So he's not opposed to playing 2 quarterbacks. In fact, it kind of sounds like he's going towards the
leaning towards the option.
He's leaning towards that. So do you believe the differences are leading this team to one starting quarterback for an entire game, or do they lead us to believe we will see quarterbacks share reps throughout the game?
It is my belief that we will not have one starting quarterback for the entire season, the same one. If Napier decides he wants to go with Nunez for the first game, we will still see Levi Lewis playing at the quarterback position. It's not going to be set in stone with whoever he decides to go in the first snap against Grambling. I'm of the belief, I think that this season it's not going to be as crazy as it was last season with 3 quarterbacks, where they were just splitting snaps and changing games almost weekly. I think that this season it's going to be more of play game by game and decide which quarterback works better against the opposing defense. The opposing defense is more susceptible to being run up on by a dual threat quarterback that can run for a bunch of yards. I think Levi Lewis is the option. But if the defensive backs on a defense aren't the strength of the team, I think Andre Nunez, who can pick apart defenses in the backfield, could be the option. Also, another thing that we might see, both of them playing in the same game. If one quarterback starts the game and struggles, we might see another quarterback come in to maybe provide a spark for the offense.
And that's something that we would like to see one quarterback for an entire game, but this is something the team could have been preparing for this entire training camp, all these practices. This entire team could be on board for the strategy for playing quarterbacks. The offense will be able to adjust. They've been preparing for this, and that could be the difference from last season where it wasn't as expected, this quarterback carousel. So this 2 quarterback situation, playing them in the same game, is it effective, or do you think it could be distracting?
It could be, but at the same time, I think the offense may be more used to playing with different quarterbacks in the backfield. As we've been saying, they're very different. They play very different styles, so that might affect the offense around them. But at the same time, they've been practicing for it. They might be ready or prepared for a totally different quarterback to come out in the second half or to come out in a different drive. So while the offense around Levi Lewis may be more prepared for him to scramble or to run out of the pocket, the offense around Andre Nunez may be more prepared for him to be throwing for a bunch of yards and not have as much of a presence in the running game. So there's definite differences, but I think that if the whole summer, if Napier's been working with both quarterbacks, I think the offense will kind of adjust depending on which quarterback's on the field.
I mean, as much as we want to see, as people want to see, or some people want to see, like, one quarterback, zone in on one quarterback, why Nunez should start, why Lewis should start. it could be game to game, could be on the season going, and it is different from last season because you've had an entire off season talking about this and preparing for this. Mm-hmm. I think it's totally different, and it might even be okay to play both quarterbacks in the same game. But I'm a belief of playing one quarterback or playing two quarterbacks in the same game as long as you're prepared.
Yeah,
that it's all about preparation.
Exactly.
Napier's noted that multiple times. It's all about preparation, and it's going to be interesting. I mean, the pros and cons of playing two quarterbacks. What's the pros and cons for that?
Well, as I said, if the team is prepared with whichever quarterback's in the game, if they're prepared to run the offense that revolves around that quarterback, with regardless of which one's in the game, I think that it could be a great weapon for us. You know, if the team is not doing well against a certain defense and they want to try and switch it up and change, the pace or the tempo, whether they want to make it more reserved with a pocket passer like Nunez or whether they want to make it more explosive with a runner like Levi Lewis, if they switch it out and it works and it catches the defense off guard, that could be a real good weapon for us this season.
Nunez was most effective when perhaps he wasn't on the radar. They weren't preparing for that. So, defenses, as you said, can have a hard time without preparation. The
con may be confidence issues. If a player's not playing well and they decide to go with a different quarterback, you hope that the quarterback that gets pulled in the game doesn't lose confidence in themselves. Mm-hmm. That's really one of the big cons for it. But other than that, it could, as I said, it could be a very sneaky weapon for the Cajuns this year.
It's crazy.
It is.
We may not know until September 1st when
Snap 1 against Grambling.
Snap 1 happens. We may not know. It's crazy. I'm excited for September 1st against Grambling, and I know you're excited.
I am very excited for that game.